I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Tighten up my meat.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a new week. Okay, so what we've got today on the show is we're going to go over, we're going to do a couple of deep dives. So we got some deep dives. We're going to go into, of course, Donald Trump's coronavirus executive orders. Will they help you? What is in them? Can he actually do them? Those are the questions I'm going to attempt to answer. So we're going to deep dive into that one. We're also going to talk about Facebook and whether or not they have a conservative bias. So we're going to talk about that. We also are going to talk about Europeans. What do they think about America's response to coronavirus? You're going to love that. And then we've got Rick Santorum going after Obama as if we have okay. Smash Mouth is trending on Twitter right now. Rick Santorum is blaming Obama. What year are we in? What is going on here? What year is this? I don't know. All right, so apparently a couple of you noticed some weird YouTube glitch. So I tried creating a stream earlier that was a scheduled stream. It did not quite work out. YouTube made some changes. Things got all wonky and weird. And so I just went back to creating this stream, and it turns out that I ended up creating two, which weirdly enough in my my live stream dashboard said it was going to era 1969. So I think it's a little buggy. YouTube, you might want to get on that. You may want to get on that. Very important that you do so. All right. Anyway, so before we dive into the stories, first, please like and share the stream. Very helpful. I have some announcements, or at least one that's pretty important. We're doing a fundraiser. I know. Again, right? I hate it every time I have to do this, or try to do this. But we're looking at getting some improvements, a better computer. So what we're doing here is the show computer is kind of old and junky. I basically run this show on a potato, and so if you guys points if you get that joke. And this, you know what? There's a lot of things that I'm not able to do because of this potato. I love to stream to Twitch. Every time I do, I get like these errors. I get desyncs that cost me, hours of productivity time to try to fix so that I can post up clips. There's game streaming that I would love to do as well. So like after hours. Don't worry, we still have the news program, but I'd also like to stream me playing some PUBG. and stuff like that with the green screen behind me. All that stuff would be really, really awesome to do. Unfortunately, I don't have the machine to do it. And so that's what we're doing. So we're asking you guys to help out. Completely optional, obviously. If you want to help out, that's great. If you can't, or if you don't want to, that's also fine, right? It's just a way to try to help us to be able to get a better experience, a better show, a better machine. We can do more stuff on it, which would really, really help us out quite a bit. So to give you a little background into the current machine that I'm using. So I got this computer back in 2016, right? So I remember during the, I think it still was the Republican primary, right? It was a Republican primary. And I had a friend actually who, and at the time I was using my laptop that I got from college, right? Back in 2010, 2011 to use for the show then, right? So I was doing that. And then one of my friends, because I told him about what I do, and he's like, oh, well, my company is retiring a bunch of our workstations. Would you like one? I said, sure, absolutely. So he hooked me up with an old workstation. I did a couple of improvements to it. But I've been running on this super slow i5, 8 gigs of RAM for a long time, for the last 4 years. And so it's not the fastest machine. It's certainly not the best machine. And so, I'd like to do an upgrade if possible. We've already got some donors for it. So thank you very much to everybody who's donated right now. Obviously, this is not an emergency. This is not life or death. If you need the money because of COVID, take care of your family, that's fine. But if you want to throw like $5-10, towards that, awesome, great. And so, no, I'm not interested in Macs. I don't really use that. So we do have an SSD, Sarge. That was one of the upgrades I did for this computer, is I added solid state. But it's still pretty slow and still pretty old. So I know how to put together a computer as well. Again, that's why I'm asking for parts. So check out my GoFundMe. I'm going to tell you everything that I need for this. It's in the link, is in the description for the live show. That is not it. Sorry. That's not the right link that I just put in the description, or I'm sorry, in the live chat. That's the new one. Check it out. If you can throw a couple of bucks at the project, at the fundraiser, I'd really appreciate it. Regardless, I'm saving, and so really the fundraiser is about helping us out to be able to get newer technology. Otherwise, it's going to be quite a while till I'm able to upgrade and do all that stuff. So, space alien DNA technology, right? Yeah, would love that. All right. Anyway, so with that, I'll shout out donors later when I go through the Patreon. But first, we're going to go to this deep dive and talk about Donald Trump's executive orders that he did over the weekend. So let's start with that. All right. Following the congressional gridlock on the fourth coronavirus stimulus package, President Trump decided he was going to take unilateral action and sign four executive orders on some of the more controversial parts that people were not agreeing with in Congress. It's actually one executive order with four different parts to it. So now this happened on Saturday over the weekend. And what it would do is that it would grant additional student loan relief, do something with the payroll taxes. It would enhance unemployment benefits, or at least continue those, and also provide a moratorium on evictions. Kind of. Now, when you get to the details, you realize that this isn't exactly as good as it sounds, even if it is at least something. So let's dive into it. Let's start out with student loans. Okay. So now, let's see. Basically, as broken down by both CNN and Vox and other sources, what you have is continued student loan payment relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's, of course, this part of the executive order. And so Trump ordered Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, to extend several student loan benefits contained in the CARES Act until December 31st, 2020. Congress had passed the CARES Act, of course, which is a $2.2 trillion stimulus bill that Congress had passed in March. Here's what the CARES Act did. The CARES Act. It paused all payments for federal student loans, set interest rates at 0% so that you wouldn't have interest accruing on your federal loans, halted collection of federal student loan debt, and among other benefits, counted non-payment of federal student loan debt towards the 120 required monthly payments for public service loan forgiveness. So, okay, again, that's the CARES Act, right? And so what Trump had done is a little bit less, right? So now Trump's memorandum references to continue the temporary cessation of payments and the waiver of all interest on student loans held by the Department of Education. Okay. It does not specifically, however, reference student loan debt collection or counting non-payments toward public service loan forgiveness, both of which were included in the CARES Act that ends September 30th, 2020. Now, that's what Trump does versus the CARES Act. So now, what does the HEROES Act do? I mean, the HEROES Act is the Democratic plan, right? So that was all passed all the way back in May. And so that's been sitting in Congress for quite some time. Congress has decided to not take that up yet, or at least the Republicans have not. And so they've been busy putting together, at the very last minute, the HEALS Act, which doesn't do a lot of other things. And so certainly doesn't really address this all that much either. So now the HEROES Act would obviously go a lot further. It would extend the break for another year through September 30th, 2020. So, no student loans, none of that other stuff, no collection of federal student loan debt, no interest on student loans, any of that. And would expand that to all federal student loans, including federal Perkins loans and some others. The legislation also cancels up to $10,000 for some federal and private loan holders. Democrats had originally proposed $30,000 in canceled student loan debt, but of course had scaled it back to try to make it more palatable for corporate Democrats and Republicans mainly. So generally, if you're looking at what I would prefer out of the choices that we have, obviously you would go with the CARES Act. I'm sorry, not the CARES Act, the HEROES Act. The CARES Act was obviously a start, and the HEROES Act is obviously the best option, passed back in May, while, again, Republicans didn't really do a whole lot. They kind of sat around on it. Okay? So now, the second part of this, we're going to go to unemployment, right? That's student loans, let's go to unemployment. So now, unemployment benefits were extended, however, in a tricky way, right? So now, first, there's a cut. Instead of a $600 weekly benefit, that's on top of what you would normally get, it's only $400, and it requires states to carry a portion of the cost. That is, of course, unless they personally request 100% payment from Donald Trump. Oh, great. So now let's go to CNN, who explains. Under Trump's measure, the federal government is requiring states to pick up the tab for 25%, which is about $100, of the as much as $400 additional benefits each person may be able to receive in weekly additional aid. On top of that, a state must agree to enter into a financial agreement with the federal government, or Trump, for any unemployed person living there to get any additional benefits. On Sunday night, Donald Trump said he was open to allowing people to get the enhanced benefit without states picking up the cost. He said it was possible the federal government could pick up the entire cost if the governors call him and make a request. Quote, "We have a system where we can do 100%, or we can do 75, they pay 25, and it will depend on the state. And they will make an application. We will look at it, and we will make a decision. Gee, I wonder what states would get priority. I mean, I think we know, right? Here you have the governor. For example, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, right? She wants that, unemployment benefit extended, and for her state not to have to pay a quarter of all that. Well, she would have to call up Donald Trump, fill out an application, and then hope that he would approve it. Yeah. That, my friends, is called a flex, right? That is a power play. That is a dick move. Exactly. Florida approved. New York denied. Michigan also denied. California denied. Alabama approved. That's what I can see happening. Okay, so now there's more than just that, of course. More problems with this. So now, right now, we have a situation where states, if they're forced to pay the 25%, right, that's $100 for each person that's unemployed, well, they're not going to be able to afford that benefit because there are a lot of states right now that have been crushed by coronavirus. Their budgets have been busted, okay? Many states have actually already asked Congress for an additional $500 billion in additional funding to shore up their budgets. And look, that was another part of why the negotiations broke down. Democrats in the HEROES Act asked for additional funding to give to the states, whereas Republicans say, well, we really don't want to give money to the states because they're being poorly run. I wonder which ones are poorly run. Oh, right, the ones run by Democrats. That's, of course, their answer to that, right? And so now what happens if Trump rejects the request or the state refuses to beg him for that money? Well, then there's very real possibility that unemployed people in that state will get no extra benefits. None whatsoever. Disaster. So now, one more thing here, right? So now, since this has not been approved by Congress, right, the White House has to set up its own system to administer those benefits. And of course, as we saw with the original coronavirus relief checks, where it took a very long time to get to people, there were a lot of delays. And that was actually a fairly simple thing, where all they had to do was just get your address, this information they should already have in your bank account, and send you the check. Well, now this is a lot more complicated, setting up their own system. I mean, it's going to be a disaster. It could take months even for these benefits, these systems to be set up in these states. Not good. All right, now let's go to evictions, right? I said eviction moratorium. Sort of, but not really. Devil is in the details. Now, the new measure signed by Donald Trump states that the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Director of the CDC are able to consider whether any measures temporarily halting residential evictions of any tenants for failure to pay are reasonably necessary to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. So basically, the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the CDC director, they have authority, right? They've got the authority in this situation to look and see, well, this is where we would allow them to be able to stay, but we get to, since HHS is a political appointment, right? The director of the HHS, that's going to make it so that, well, I'm pretty sure people in red states will again be favored over blue states. Not good. Very bad. All right. Now, this order also, since they are not able to appropriate money because it's the executive branch and not the legislative branch, there is no money for homeowners or renters. The action calls for HUD Development and Treasury Secretary to identify any and all federal funds to provide temporary financial assistance to renters and homeowners who are struggling to pay their mortgages and rents because of coronavirus. So you're going to have Ben Carson and Steve Mnuchin that will be deciding this money, right? They will use any and all federal funds to provide temporary financial assistance to renters and homeowners who are struggling. And that, of course, is very subjective. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. The CARES Act didn't do a whole lot for renters either, right? And so that was one major failing. We point that out on the show all the time. We needed actually not only a freeze, a cancellation of rent for the duration, but also a freeze on mortgages to make it so that these the people who are landlords are able to also, not have to pay those mortgages to the banks, so they can continue to have money as well. And so CARES Act really didn't do a whole lot about this. Okay. Now the HEROES Act, however, would have done something different. Now it provides approximately $100 billion in rental assistance. Here's how it would work. An existing nationwide grant rental assistance program would verify a tenant's inability to pay and give you a voucher in order to cover the costs of rent and utilities. It would also extend the ban on evictions for non-payment for a year following the enactment date. It also provides $75 billion for a homeowner assistance fund intended to prevent mortgage defaults and property foreclosures. That's good. It would amend the previous stimulus package so that borrowers of any covered mortgage loan, any secured loan, any secured by a mortgage or deed trust on a 1 to 4 unit dwelling would be eligible for forbearance for up to a year if they affirm that the coronavirus had affected them financially. So again, like the rest of these, there's only so much an executive order can accomplish. It would be much better if we were to get a bill through Congress. All right. Now, the last thing is one of President Trump's priorities and Republicans, and that's messing with the payroll tax, right? So now, I've been hearing it called a payroll tax cut. It's not really a cut, okay? It's a deferral, which means basically your payroll taxes are not reduced. They're just giving you a grace period, and then later on, all those taxes will come due. So now there's a plan for that, of course, but I'll get to that in a minute. So now what it does is, as I said before, this defers the due date for the portion of the taxes paid by employees, 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare through December 31st. It applies to workers whose wages are less than $4,000 on a biweekly basis, or about $104,000 a year. This is similar to the Treasury deferring income taxes. Remember, it was, instead of April 15th, it was July 15th. It's just like that. It's still going to be due. Now, they would have, again, been delayed. And so companies, for example, may not want to stop that withholding for that reason, right? So it turns out that companies might not do this. And so workers might not be saving all that much money anyway. In fact, even if they could defer it for now, the benefit would be negligible. And besides, there's a lot of unemployed people in this country. And so you're not really helping the workers. And you're also not really helping people who are unemployed, which is a big problem. So now what they want to do, of course, is later on after the election, be like, oh, yes, we're going to make that payroll tax deferment. We're going to turn that into a tax cut. So we're just going to get rid of the payroll tax, essentially. Oh, great. Which is going to hurt Medicare and Social Security down the line. Because, of course. So now, again, all these are not really going to do a whole lot. Okay, so understand that. I mean, he really can't do a whole lot because, again, he doesn't hold the purse. The executive branch doesn't. It's the legislative branch that does. That's Congress. And so he needs their approval to authorize any money. But here's the bottom line. Trump's doing this out of politics. He's capitalizing on the gridlock. And he's going to make his case for re-election. This is going to make him look strong to people who already support him, and it might appeal to those who are still not paying attention and don't really get into the details. They hear payroll tax cut or just tax cut, and they think, oh, great, I'm going to save money. You know, they hear moratorium on evictions. They're like, oh, great, I'm protected. You know, they hear student loans. Oh, great. This is a great plan. What are the Democrats doing? Well, the Democrats actually have a better plan, and they've had their plan sitting there since May that the Republicans have decided not to take up because, you know, they wanted to wait and see, right? In reality, of course, they didn't care. And then they let this get to crisis levels so they could probably push the Democrats into a worse deal. In which, look, Democrats already give up a lot. There was a lot in the HEROES Act that was not in there that should be in there. But again, they kind of unilaterally surrender on some of these points in order to make it more palatable to Republicans. And Republicans still do not argue in good faith. They do not negotiate in good faith. And so it's kind of where we're at here, right? But on this bill, again, when you look into the details, when you look at the potential impact, there's a lot of people, economists, that are saying this is going to be very, very small impact, not really going to do a whole thing, a whole lot. It's not going to be effective. What we need, of course, is an agreement in Congress. And between the bills on the floor, the Democrats' plan is far more comprehensive and just better. And we should really be pushing in order to do that. All right. Moving on here. All right. Hold on here. I'm going to have to pause and restart the stream because I just had a freeze and it's going to cause a desync. So let's take a quick break and we'll be back in a minute. Around the nation.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here. Waldorf Nation. All right. So sorry for that interruption. Technical issues. Okay. So I want to give a shout out to patrons. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Elena Valentino and Kevin Rundell. Thank you for becoming patrons. Channel members, I want to thank Wolfiana and Jeremy Hughes. So thank you. Donors for the GoFundMe campaign. I want to thank Eric Miller. So thank you, Eric. Big donation there. I want to thank Sarah Nunley, Andrew Pollard, and Nick Smile. So thank you. If you want to, of course, donate to that, there's a link in the description. All right. So let's dive in. Let's get to Rick Santorum. Fun times. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, just like you can't teach a Santorum not to blame the black guy.
President Obama then has ignored the rule of law, ignored the balance of power between each branch of government, and ignored the will of the American people. So that's what you, and to be fair, many Republicans felt in terms of President Obama's use of executive actions. How do you feel about it now this morning when it's a Republican president?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things. Number one, some of the things the president is suggesting are proper use of executive action, like suspending the payroll tax temporarily. He'll need Congress to come back and make it and make it permanent, so people don't have to pay it back. But he can certainly do that. I mean, so a couple of executive actions are clearly fine.
All right, so let me stop there. Okay, so what they're talking about is deferring the payroll tax. Okay. Oh man, that sounds great, right? Oh, and then make it permanent after the election. Great, love it. Conservatives cheer everywhere. Why? Because they don't like the payroll tax, right? That's one way to end Social Security and Medicare. Look, Republicans, they've been doing this for a while, right? Their plan is to basically try to starve the trust fund for Social Security and Medicare that is funded by payroll taxes by reducing the payroll tax. So now, for one thing, they can go and say, well, we're just allowing you to keep more of your money. And so that's pretty good messaging, right? And everybody likes that idea, right? Oh man, I love saving my money. But then, again, later on down the road, you no longer have Social Security and Medicare, because then Republicans say, look, these programs are ineffective and they're broke. What are we going to do? We're going to have to sell it off to Wall Street. We're really sorry, but don't worry. Wall Street, you can't. Wall Street's cooking up something great. You're going to love it. And by you, I mean the people that are going to be managing your accounts and making money off you. And if if you end up losing your retirement to the stock market, well, I mean, that's a sad day for you, man. Not good. All right. Anyway. It's the same old thing. Okay. That said, is he correct about executive actions when it comes to Obama? Yeah. Yeah, he is actually right. So let's go to a little bit of that. Okay. What's funny here is that when we get to this is where Rick Santorum is really going to expose himself.
That's the problem.
That's
see,
Nancy
the thing
Pelosi.
is,
There's a couple that are not, and I would say that Barack Obama has set the precedent, and that's the problem. That's the reason that many Republicans came out when he was spending money on health care that he was not under Obamacare, that he was not permitted to spend under the act. I find the hypocrisy of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who applauded President Obama for using this unconstitutional executive action, are now complaining that President Trump is doing the same thing.
But I'm giving you an opportunity to not be a hypocrite. So on the unemployment,
I'm saying you heard me say it, John. I
no,
think
you blame President Obama. I just want to know: do you approve of the executive action?
No, I don't.
Because
no, I don't. I think, but here's the problem.
No,
you don't
but because
see the
why don't you? Why don't? I want to give you the opportunity to say why don't you approve of the action that President Trump, this president, took?
The action that you just spoke of, creating a new unemployment system, if you will, and is something that is under the purview of Congress to do and is not for the president to be able to do. And just like when Barack Obama funded health insurance companies illegally, in my opinion, unconstitutionally, both are under the purview of Congress to appropriate that money, and he can't just unilaterally do that.
All right, so there's some things there, right? So now look, again, Rick Santorum, to his credit, he's right. He's right about that. That's what a lot of critics are saying about Trump's executive action on unemployment. You can't just do that, right? Congress holds the purse strings. And so what he's trying to do, the administration, is to try to do an end run around Congress to score political points. We know that, right? Now, his accusation of Obama doing the same thing is actually also correct. What is incorrect, where he is lying about this, is that Obama did not set the precedent. That is absolutely absurd. Okay. Barack Obama was not the first person to do executive actions. I know there's a little bit of revisionist history there, right? There's actually a history going back a long time of presidents doing executive orders. So let me give you some context, okay? Tell you how many executive orders some of the more notable recent presidents have made, okay? So now, Obama did a total of his 8 years, 276 executive orders. Wow. You might think, man, that's a lot of orders. What a dictator, King Obama. Oh my God. Okay, well, here's the thing. George W. Bush, 291 orders. Ronald Reagan, hero Ronald Reagan, small government, 381 executive orders. The era of small government the era of big government is over. Bill Clinton, 364 executive orders. Now, this is going to blow your mind. Okay, when it comes to who holds the record for the most executive orders during their terms, FDR, 3,728 executive orders. It's a lot of orders, man. That is not something that is unprecedented in American history. Okay, and here's the thing: some executive orders do and should get challenged if they're out of the purview of the executive branch. That's fine. That's why we have a system of checks and balances. I think there should be a limit on executive power. And I had been saying this during the Obama administration as well. So at least I'm consistent on that. But here's the thing. Going back to Obama's example, right? He did F up on executive power, opening the door, of course, for Donald Trump to mess with the ACA. Okay. And look, let's be fair about this, right? The reason Obama had to go to so many executive orders was mainly because of Republican obstruction. And so 100%, that was the issue. Republicans did not want the ACA to work. But then again, Obama as well was doing similar executive orders for political reasons, especially after the disastrous midterm elections of 2014. So let's get into the details, right? So now he had used executive power to delay and implement certain parts of the Affordable Care Act. Again, for political reasons. For example, he delayed the employer portion of the ACA's individual mandate until 2015. So again, that was to help him with the business community. Then there was the famous, if you like your insurance, you can keep it. Well, there was a little bit of a problem with that, right? So now he said that on the campaign trail, but there were people with insurance that the ACA had made illegal. These are junk insurance plans. Now, look, I don't like the junk insurance plans because basically what you're paying for is nothing. You're just paying to say, I have insurance. And then when you go to use it, there's often a sky-high deductible and not a whole lot that's actually covered by this. But Obama said that. Republicans went after him. Fox News went after him. It was called PolitiFact's Lie of the Year. And so he's like, oh, okay, executive order. And we're going to, make sure that the plans that were made illegal by my law, by the ACA, are now acceptable for a temporary amount of time. That was that executive order. And so if you want to point that out, it's totally fair game, right? But really, executive orders, they kind of fall out of, are illegal, again, when you're stepping outside your authority to appropriate money, okay? Because again, that's Congress's job. They hold the purse string, right? So let me give you one more, a little bit of detail, a little bit of context to that ACA thing. According to Vox, state insurance commissioners who have frontline responsibility for overseeing health insurance were told they didn't need to apply the ACA's new rules to old health plans. At first, the fix delayed the ACA for 10 months. The administration later extended that by another 2 years. And so, well, there's that. And again, that was all without Congress. I think he was able to do that because it didn't have to deal with the appropriations of money. That said, you want to talk about, executive orders, let's be fair about it, right? But to say that Obama, it was the precedent that Obama, it's all Obama's fault that Donald Trump is doing executive orders, that's not true at all. Donald Trump would do executive orders even if Obama had done a lot less. And so far, by the way, Donald Trump has done about 180 plus executive orders, a lot of them rolling back what Obama had done. So let's understand that. Okay. And so I think overall, Rick Santorum is trying to pretend to be like, oh no, I'm a very principled conservative, and trying to get political points instead of, again, being principled and saying, no, I do know that Republican presidents have taken a lot of executive actions, and maybe we should do something about that. Maybe we need to limit what can be done without Congress. Maybe we should limit the executive branch. And certainly he didn't do that under Bush. He didn't, wasn't talking about that under Bush. Definitely was talking about it under Obama, and had to get pressed to talk about that under Trump. So, look, it's a nuanced conversation to have about executive power, but as usual, it's American politics, and apparently we don't do that here. All right. Let's go to Facebook. It's bound to be a little controversial. It's long been rumored that Facebook has a bias. Now, of course, that bias changes depending on who you're talking to. Conservatives talk a lot about how Facebook has an anti-conservative bias. Oh, they're so biased against us. I can't believe Facebook would shut down or fact check our pages. Oh, how terrible, right? And of course, progressives, we also talk about how Facebook isn't exactly fair to us. So now there was some research that was done about this, and there was a story in BuzzFeed, actually, which details that, well, it turns out progressives happen to be right. Facebook does have a bias, and it's in favor of the right wing. So now let me give you the details. Now, right-wing pages are apparently often far larger and more prevalent on Facebook, right? And they're more featured in the algorithm. They reach more than left-wing pages, and that's fine, right? If it was just a free market of ideas, then okay, you could accept that there's a lot of people on Facebook that happen to be right-wing or see right-wing views. But in reality, again, there are reasons for that are not exactly, well, organic, right? So now, in this report, BuzzFeed writes that some of Facebook's own employees gathered evidence they say showed Breitbart, along with other right-wing outlets and figures, including Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, Diamond and Silk, and conservative video production nonprofit PragerU, has received special treatment that helped it avoid running afoul of company policy when it comes to spreading misinformation. Fascinating. Now, they see it as a part of a pattern of preferential treatment for right-wing publishers and pages, many of which have alleged that the social network is biased against conservatives. So what do we mean by preferential treatment? Well, in the case of misinformation on the platform, it turns out that if you spread misinformation too much, you can get strikes. So you publish something that's not true, an independent fact checker comes in, and they say, oh, wow, no, this is false. You get too many of those strikes, and Facebook can demonetize you, deplatform you, or at the very least, limit how many people that you reach with that disinformation, as well as, of course, flagging your article or whatever, your editorial or your video with a mostly false or half true or whatever, right? Ranking. So now, according to a Facebook spokesperson, however, no, this is not happening. In fact, they say, quote, when a fact checker applies a rating, we apply a label and demotion. but we are responsible for how we manage our internal systems for repeat offenders. We apply additional system-wide penalties for multiple false ratings, including demonetization and the inability to advertise unless we determine that one or more of those ratings does not warrant additional consequences. And so they explain how that system works. And then they explain, well, hey, we apply that across the board, right-wing pages. No one is exempt, right? So we treat all pages, whether they're conservative or liberal, exactly the same. Well, again, when it comes to Breitbart specifically, well, Breitbart is still a partner on Facebook. It's a very big page. And if, according to people on the inside, they have had help from from other Facebook employees. In fact, on July 22nd, a Facebook employee posted a message to the company's internal misinformation policy group, noting that some of the misinformation strikes against Breitbart had been cleared by someone at Facebook acting on the publication's behalf. The employee wrote that a Breitbart escalation marked urgent end of day was resolved on the same day, with all misinformation strikes against Breitbart's page and against their domain cleared without explanation. The same employee said a partly false rating applied to an Instagram post from Charlie Kirk was flagged for priority escalation by Joe Kaplan, the company's vice president of global public policy. So now Kaplan, he factors into this story quite a bit. Now, who is Kaplan? Well, he was a former George W. Bush administration alum who drew criticism for supporting Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. So we know where he lies on the political spectrum. And so if he is making these decisions on clearing misinformation strikes on right-wing outlets unilaterally, by the way, well, that's problematic, okay? Because then you've got this guy that's the arbiter, basically, of what is true and what is not true on the platform. And so that people, if it's misinformation, cannot see that it's misinformation because, well, hey, look, it serves my political agenda. What am I going to do? So now, let's see. A past Facebook employee, right, also called this out. They have expressed, this is Yael Eisenstadt, Facebook's former global election ads integrity lead, expressed concerns with Kaplan's influence over content enforcement decisions. She previously told BuzzFeed News a member of Kaplan's Washington policy team attempted to influence ad enforcement decisions for an ad placed by a conservative organization. Quote, it appears that policy people have been intervening in fact checks on behalf of exclusively right-wing publishers to avoid getting them repeat offender status. Remember, repeat offender status means that you lose your reach and you lose your monetization. But it's not just that. There is somebody who is giving preferential treatment to the page, again, because of their political alignment. That's bad enough. But now, also, according to this report, and former people at Facebook, former and current employees, actually, if you talk about it, right, raise the alarm, you're going to get punished. Individuals that spoke out about the apparent special treatment of right-wing pages also faced consequences. In one case, a Facebook engineer, a former senior Facebook engineer, collected multiple instances of conservative figures receiving unique help from Facebook employees, including those on the policy team, to remove fact checks on their content. Facebook removed that post because they said it violated the company's respectful communications policy. Okay. Furthermore, after an engineer's post was removed, the related internal tasks he'd cited as examples of the special treatment were made private and inaccessible to other employees, including according to a workplace post from another employee. That person was eventually fired. News of his firing caused some Facebook employees to say that they now fear retribution for speaking out. One person said they were deleting old posts and comments, while another said that this was hardly the first time the respectful workplace guidelines have been used to snipe a prominent critic of company policies/ethics. He was a conscience of the company and a tireless voice for us doing the right thing, said another employee. The terminated employee declined to comment and was asked not to be named for fear of further retribution. The internal evidence gathered by the engineer aligns with the experience of a journalist who works for one of Facebook's fact checkers, right? And so, again, Facebook has fact checking partners. One of them includes the Daily Wire, but also PolitiFact as well. So now they told BuzzFeed News that conservative pages often, when they are hit with these misinformation strikes, immediately call them directly to complain to the company. Quote, of the publishers that don't follow the procedure, it seems to be mostly ones on the right. Instead of appealing to the fact checker, they immediately call their rep at Facebook. So literally calling the manager like a Karen. And again, this journalist, by the way, declined to be named because they were not authorized to speak publicly, but this was their experience. When they do call into Facebook, they immediately say censorship, First Amendment, freedom. I think Facebook is a bit afraid of them because of the Trump administration. So that's part of it. Now, the other part, of course, is money. But again, here you have these right-wing Facebook pages that get hit with the misinformation from an independent fact checker, right? They're not happy with that. So instead of dealing with the fact checker and saying, look, this is why you got it wrong, they call up management and say, freedom, censorship, and First Amendment. And then they say, oh, you know what? That's a great argument. Strike removed. That's what's going on here. So now, again, the reason they have so much influence, again, not only because of Kaplan, who's part of the company and holds a high position, but also because these right-wing Facebook pages rake in a lot of money. So now, Facebook typically assigns dedicated partner managers to pages with large followings or big ad budgets. So basically, the more important you are, the more people you reach, and of course, the more money you spend on ads, which helps Facebook, you get a partner manager. And so, to an extent, that makes sense, especially when it comes to bigger bigger pages, right? Now, and these people, of course, help clients maximize their use of the platform. Okay. But in the cases of that are identified in the engineer's post, these partner reps have also appeared to have sought preferential treatment for right-wing publishers. This results in phone calls to fact-checking partners from people at Facebook, in instances where misinformation strikes appear to be removed from content without a fact-checker's knowledge or involvement. So they're just bypassing these fact checks. Of course they are. Now, they talked to a person from PolitiFact. And so this person from PolitiFact says, hey, look, that's not my experience. Nobody at Facebook contacted me to change a rating. However, they do reach out to discuss whether a post is opinion or otherwise outside the scope of the program. That person says, quote, we have had discussion where our partners have asked us, why did you fact check this? Why did you come to this conclusion? How do you think it fits within the scope of Facebook's rules or regulations within fact checking? So look, a lot of those are generally good questions to ask, right? Hey, like, how'd you come to the conclusion? And then you present your evidence. And then if it's wrong, if it's actual misinformation, then yeah, that fact check should stick. And I have no problem with like the appeals process, right? Except unfortunately, what you have is a system of appeals that favors right-wing pages. And so, for example, this is how they treat a lefty page. Now, Mark Provost manages several large progressive and liberal pages. One of them is The Other 98. Now, he said that his Facebook partner manager is far less responsive than what the Facebook employee documented for provost counterparts in the right wing. And he is not aware of any case where Facebook contacted a fact checker on his behalf. So, wait, he says, quote, we don't get a message back for 10 days. I imagine the right wing is getting a way better deal. Yeah. Not only that, but The Other 98 page is currently at risk to be deleted because of having 3 strikes, deplatformed. Now, one of them was allegedly for hate speech. However, when contacted, when they try to figure out, hey, what post is that? So that, we can go through and we can challenge that, Facebook won't tell them. Now, his partner representative says, oh, don't worry, we'll look into it. But that was over a week ago, and he had not received an update. Quote, I'm getting frustrated with this. The best solution would be if Facebook were as responsive to as the fact-checking companies that they've assigned. So there's a difference, right? Facebook itself favoring the right wing, not representative. The fact-check companies, however, or I should say the fact-check partners, right? They immediately get back to you. So now, Provost said that those partners are very easy to deal with when he contacts them to dispute a rating. In some cases, he provides additional proof or his claim to get his rating changed. In other cases, he corrected the post and the false rating was removed. That's how it's supposed to work. But, and the reason, of course, that I agree with that's the way that's supposed to work, because we actually do care about facts. We don't want to spread misinformation or disinformation. That's different from the model of the right wing. They intentionally spread disinformation in order to, again, push a certain political narrative. And there's a difference between pushing disinformation for your perspective and actually pushing your perspective to try to win a political debate. So, all right. Now, the fact checker who spoke to BuzzFeed said that most page owners follow the policy and contact them to dispute a rating, but in some cases, they do hear directly from Facebook and from a partner manager specifically assigned to work with fact checkers. They will ask us, could you take a look at this again? Are you sure? The checker said. In other cases, though, it didn't even get to that point. Facebook will itself quietly remove a fact check. One post, for example, is from Diamond and Silk. They wrote, how is allocating $25 million in order to give a raise to House members that don't give a damn about Americans going to help stimulate the American economy? Tell me how. Hashtag put Americans back to work now. Lead Stories, a Facebook fact-checking partner, rated this false. Diamond and Silk followed the proper procedure and appealed directly to Lead Stories. Quote, they were detailed in their appeal and we replied promptly. Alan Duke, the editor-in-chief of Lead Stories, told BuzzFeed News. The result was that we decided that a false rating initially given their content should be revised downward to partly false. Okay. As detailed in the July 22nd internal Facebook post, Diamond and Silk appealed to their partner manager as well, who opened an internal ticket for the issue. The Facebook rec argued the post was opinion and warned that the duo was extremely sensitive and has not hesitated going public about their concerns around alleged conservative bias on Facebook. Oh, they're sensitive, guys. Super sensitive. Diamond and Silk. Who's the snowflakes? Now, what's interesting on this, right, is that after that, they decided to give Diamond and Silk preferential treatment. Now, the partial false fact check is still visible. However, Facebook removed the strike against their account internally. Oops. The Facebook employee said someone described on the task as policy leadership made the call to not only completely remove the strike, but also a previous one from January for another false post. I mean, there it is. That is definitely preferential treatment towards conservatives. There are people inside that are actively helping the right wing continue to spread misinformation and allow these pages to continue to have their reach to spread harmful ideas, while not allowing lefty channels to do the same. I mean, here's the thing. What do you expect when you're dealing with a business, with a corporation, right? This is about money. And not only that, but I believe Zuckerberg is very concerned that Trump would try to regulate him. And so, I mean, look, a lot of this is because they're conservatives that don't want to get challenged on their bad ideas. And they're using snowflake Karen behavior to whine and cry until they get their way. Progressives, however, look, when we get it wrong, we go, okay, we got it wrong. Or when they say, no, you got it wrong, and we present evidence to the otherwise, that's the way the system is supposed to work, right? But if we do get it wrong, we try to do better because we do care about facts. And that's really the difference. We do care about the facts in reality. And unfortunately, if you have money and power and representatives inside the company, which is, again, a business trying to make money, which will not favor left-wing perspectives, well, then who do you think they're going to favor? This is why it's probably a good argument to not have Facebook as a public company, right? As a company that is not governed. Well, that isn't a public utility, I should say. These social media companies are far too large, and we're far too reliant on information that they should be treated as a public utility. When it, because of their reach and their ability to influence people and influence elections, influence voting, and spread harmful misinformation and propaganda, they should be treated, like I said, like a public news source, which of course you can still have the First Amendment that actually would apply, that you couldn't censor opinions, but also you'd be able to regulate them and fact check them to make sure that harmful disinformation does not get out into the public. And so that's what's important about that. But here we go. Unsurprisingly, another conservative talking point has been completely obliterated. All right. One more here. Should be real quick. Europeans are shocked and horrified as coronavirus cases hit 5 million and the death toll in America hits about 162,000. So now members from Newsweek and the Associated Press spoke with people in Italy, as well as Germans and residents of other nations. And, well, what they had to say about America wasn't exactly nice. So now it's important to note that America is now at the top of the at-risk travelers to Europe, meaning that they do not want us coming to their country, at least until they know what the hell is going on. Right. So now one Italian man, according to the AP, said, or basically asks about America, don't they care about their health? They need to take our precautions, which of course includes masks and social distancing, and adds, they need a real lockdown. Which, by the way, we didn't really have. We had like a partial quasi-lockdown, which wasn't really a real lockdown, right? Look, Benjamin Dixon talks about this all the time. He says, look, Americans for a short period of time should be completely locked down and have everything delivered, food, debit card, all that stuff delivered via USPS. And that's it. And then until the numbers go down, then people can come back out slowly. So look, that's what a lot of countries had actually done. Now, Massimo Franco, columnist with the daily Corriere della Sera newspaper, says this: we Italians always saw America as a model, but with this virus, we discovered a country that is very fragile, with bad infrastructure and a public health system that is non-existent. I mean, where's the lie? I mean, really. So now, look, it's kind of amazing when people outside of America actually realize that, oh, wait, America doesn't have universal health care? Wait, they don't? These are people, again, outside this country. Nobody knows what a deductible is. What's a deductible? What's a copay? What's an out-of-health care network charge? What is that? What's a healthcare network? I don't understand the concept. They don't know that you're charged $2,000 to $3,000 for an ambulance. And then, as a result, many people don't actually use an ambulance. It blows their mind because they've never had to deal with it. Okay? They've always had health care. Now, several European doctors had agreed with their U.S. counterparts in saying that Americans' individualist spirit, which is sometimes a really good thing, right? In this case, it's a bad thing. It has backfired and led the country to the top of the both infection and death toll lists. We're number one. We're number one. We win. Oh, wait. This is not a prize that you want to win. Okay. Italian Health Minister Roberto Speranza, one of the country's top public health officials, condemned Donald Trump and Washington lawmakers' response to the virus as, quote, wrong. Very wrong. Italy now sees about 150 to 300 new cases nationwide, down from the 6,500 daily cases the country had recorded on March 21st. You guys remember when Italy was a flaming disaster, right? At the start of COVID. And you had people in America that are like, oh my God, look at Italy. They're doing such a terrible job. I don't think any country could ever fuck up as much as Italy does. I mean, look at those guys over there. Oh, what a disaster. And then here in America, 5 million cases, 162,000 dead. We're going to continue, by the way. We will likely see 200,000 people die before the election. And so this is not good. This is a disaster. And so now in the U.S., again, there's about 54,000 new cases of coronavirus a day. Cases, not deaths, very important distinction, because obviously not everybody's going to die from coronavirus. But even if you have like a 1% mortality rate, that's still pretty bad as the numbers go up. Okay. And now when you compare us again to Italy now, well, their number of cases per capita is a lot less than ours per capita. And so when you do a comparison, the United States is losing very badly. We are not doing well at this, okay? And unfortunately, the only ones that we can really blame are ourselves and our leadership, of course. Now, medical professionals. I'm sorry. Here's one professor at the University of Birmingham in England. This is Scott Lucas saying this, quote, had the medical professionals been allowed to operate in states, you would have belatedly gotten to a point of getting to grips with this back in March. But of course, the medical and public health professionals were not allowed to proceed unchecked. Now, look, the UK is also not doing fantastic with this, but they're doing better than we are. Look, again, the United States leads the world, followed by Brazil, Russia, any place where you have an authoritarian right-wing leader, they do really, really poorly. Who knew, right? And so now as far as, what do you mean? These health professionals were not allowed to proceed unchecked. Well, he means Donald Trump, the Trump administration, Fox News, the Republican Party, they have basically done everything they can in their power to downplay the virus. Not only that, but of course, you have the response to the virus. If you downplay it and say it's not a big deal, then it really excuses you to not do a whole lot when it comes to addressing the situation as well, to addressing the virus, closing down the states, making sure that we, don't send people back to school in person before we have a handle on this virus. And we're not doing that. We are sending the kids back to school. And now you'll have 97,000 children that have come back with positive coronavirus cases. I thought children are supposed to be immune, according to Donald Trump. They're clearly not and never were. Now, here's the other thing, right? So again, since you've got all these right-wing figures, mainly the Republican Party, Fox News, Donald Trump, saying that you should just basically ignore recommendations from public health officials. They said that for quite some time, right? And so a lot of the people who heard this message, they decided to dive face first into conspiracy theories that are not backed up by credible evidence. And that's why A country like New Zealand has been COVID-free for about 100 days, whereas in Europe, they flattened the curve, but in America, we're a dumpster fire. We're going to hit 200,000 deaths. A couple of months. And we're not social distancing. We're not wearing masks as much as we should, right? And we're reopening the country too fast. Again, if we had actually done everything that we were supposed to do, then we would be able to have reopened by this point, at least to a better extent. Instead, we're not doing that. And a lot of our politicians are just throwing up their hands and saying, whatever. If they die, they die. Not good. Complete and utter failure. And again, as I mentioned before, it's no one's fault except for ourselves and our terrible leadership. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Check out our fundraising campaign to try to get me a better machine, a better computer, so we can do more. Or become a patron, patreon.com/JeffWaldorf, or become a channel member. All that stuff, of course, helps. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night. See you guys tomorrow.
Please clap.
Mike Pounds.
Tolerate.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.